Listen to Season 2 of Critical Moments to understand what is changing in the age of AI and how is go-to-market evolving in 2026 and beyond. Hi everybody, and thank you so much for joining another session of Critical Moments Season 2. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Doug Regner from Unusual Ventures. Doug, can you give everybody a quick introduction to who you are, please, and some of the work that you typically do?
Sure. Thanks, Stuart, for having me. Great to be here. So, as you mentioned, I'm with Unusual Ventures. We're a seed stage venture firm, primarily seed. And we're in a few areas: data infrastructure, SaaS, and fintech. And what is a bit different about our model, and I think there are maybe only a handful of venture firms that are doing this, is that we have a team that I'm on, and we come and help our portfolio companies in a very hands-on way. So I think every venture firm says they offer support and experience, and they probably do to some degree. We're different than our founder services team, like embeds in with these founders, help them find product market fit. And so it's either pre-product, we're working with them to really understand, do customer interviews and make sure that like there's desperate pain. We find desperate pain on the concept and the vision for the implementation of their company before they start to build, or they go too far in building, because that's the most expensive part, is to hire engineers, build your solution. You really want to make sure that like you're building it where on the other side, there's actual paying customers that really want your solution. If you don't do that, it's very hard to pivot. And then post-product, we help with that because 0 to 1-ish, $1+ million journey to get the initial set of customers so that you can successfully raise the follow-on financing, Series A. And so I'll work with one or two portfolio companies at a time, typically one for 1 to 3 quarters at a time, where I essentially join the team for a while and I assume their targets, and we run pretty damn hard trying, like you would joining a startup. And the benefit is that, I believe I bring a wealth of experience that would be otherwise hard at the stage that these companies are at to find full time. So we have a very high success rate. We graduate, well above average in terms of seed companies raising Series A. So we believe that the model's working.
Yeah, amazing. Because there's like so many like amazing logos and businesses on your portfolio. AppDynamics, Gusto, Webflow, Robinhood as an example. And I guess what you just summarized there is that as the operating partner, you're literally going in full time to actually support the founders through that really challenging phase of pre-product market fit, through finding some product market fit, but crucially actually helping them close revenue as well.
It's not like I'm an advice guy, where you're just putting time on my calendar and I'm giving you my thoughts on a particular situation. Like I'm basically joining your team for a while. And so we work hard. Sometimes it's dirty work sometimes, where we do whatever it takes with the founder to try to get to the next step and to try to find product market fit. And it can be hard. Sometimes the initial hypothesis that founders have is close to the pain, but not right on. And so we try to make sure that we find that. And then we invest largely in very technical founders. They don't always have go-to-market experience. Now, some can be naturals and they're inclined to be good at it, but some actually really need a lot of coaching and support to bring on their first set of customers and do things that, don't get them on the wrong track. And so that's what we're here for. So my team, so I'm focused on sales. That's my background, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but we also have operators in marketing and product design and development. And now we even have an expert in AI go-to-market, like engineering. So there's kind of this new category of GTM engineers that are kind of orchestrating different AI systems. Once you have some inklings of product market fit, how do you use AI to really kind of turbocharge your go-to-market growth?
Yeah. So how do you get to a place that you're the operating partner in somewhere like Unusual Ventures? Can you give us a brief background on how you got to this point?
Sure, sir. It wasn't something that I was actively looking for. So I've been a part of several early stage startups where I was at one point the fifth hire, first sales hire really, to, coming in as a VP sales at a seed stage company, and helping build out, the whole motion. And I've been fortunate that several of the companies that I've joined have had successful exits. And I've seen that, early innings work of like how to get something off the ground. And I was about to do it again. I had an offer from a Series A company to be their CRO, and I was inclined to take it. And then I got a call from Unusual. It was really because I had a former colleague. Your network always helps. Network is your net worth, as they say.
Yeah.
And I had a former colleague out at Unusual at the time, and he recommended me because they were looking for someone with my experience. So that's how I got introduced to Unusual. And then, something worth noting. I mean, I'm a failed founder myself. It was kind of short. I had an idea. I did a lot of customer interviews, and largely following all the same process that we advocate at Unusual. Like before you build anything, go out and talk to who you think your customers will be. And I had a prototype, and ultimately I decided like this probably wasn't the right, probably wasn't the right idea, or maybe I wasn't the right person to do it. There's a few reasons why, but like went through that part of that journey that a lot of our founders go through. And so I know that that the folks at Unusual felt that would be a very beneficial experience to have that empathy for founders, what they're going through, the fact that I've gone through it a little bit myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really really cool. And I guess when you're in this position now, and from personal experience of being similar within a venture studio, it feels like quite a privilege being able to support multiple businesses through these phases over the course of 12 months. Like how would you summarize your kind of day-to-day work and your sentiment towards what you're doing today versus where maybe you've previously been a sole operator within one startup for a prolonged period of time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think every operating partner role at venture firms are going to be a little different. Like there'll be different flavors of it. So I can only speak to my experience here at Unusual. And like I said, we have a unique model. What I love about it is I get to work closely with a lot of different kinds of founders and technical founders that do need some help with go-to-market typically, right? And I've been through a number of startups and have got some scars and some wins. So, I can guide them. And I'm kind of, I'm a doer and a coach at the same time. I do a lot of work. So there are some times where I'm doing SDR work. I'm doing cold outreach to protect potential customers on behalf of our founders, right? We're trying to talk to people and see, determine who our ICP should be, or validate who our ICP should be, and get our message right. And so that takes reps. Like we just have to talk to people. So, I mean, that's probably the least glamorous part of my job is that, SDR work, but it just needs to be done with startups. Like you have to go talk to customers. And, but I think where I add a lot of value is when we do talk to them, really being that second set of ears and hearing like, okay, how are people positioning the problem? Like, do they have a problem? How are they positioning that pain? How can we craft our message or talk to adjacent people that maybe feel the problem even greater, so we can really focus on a very narrow ICP. And that's hard for a lot of founders is to start narrow. They have a vision. That's why they're founders, of being maybe a platform for a lot of different kinds of businesses. But when you're starting in that early stage, in that first part of your journey, it's really important to be very, as narrow as you possibly can. And that coaching, and that doing is very, very rewarding for me, to, as we break through and we navigate that labyrinth, right, of like where to start and how to position. Like when you finally get it, that treasure hunt is pretty nice. Like, it's rewarding. And then when you see the company take off and they raise a Series A or Series B, then it's great. It's great for everyone. Like it's the founder's dream. We're obviously a venture firm. We're in the business of generating returns for our LPs. So we're all gunning for the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. I think the the way we describe it is that you need to be narrow enough to be relevant, but wide enough to hit your commercial goals. So it's that trade-off. I think you said like as narrow as you can be, and it's just striking that balance that you're narrow and you're relevant, but the audience is big enough that based on, typical conversion paths that you can actually hit the revenue goals that are set, whether you're pre-seed, seed, Series A or beyond.
Well, let me interrupt you there, Stuart. So I think just as a point of distinction, like we really believe that narrow is the right, because all revenue is not the same. If you actually go into a Series A fundraising meeting and you've got $1 million of revenue, let's say, but it just looks completely different. Like each customer has a different use case, a different job to be done. They're different profile. Let's say they're different industries, they're different, segments in terms of size. It actually is harder for you to raise. Where if you came in with like, hey, we've got 20 customers and they all basically look the same. They're all like, and we think we can find more of these and move to an adjacent segment that we believe also has, that the same pain or similar pain. I think your odds of raising capital go way up because they're betting like, okay, this is working. We just need to give you more. If it's kind of a Frankenstein of customers, then you're less certain, right? And you can get pulled in a lot of different directions and become pretty, diluted in terms of your product impact. So we really recommend like go narrow to start. The other reason is that like you want referenceable customers that people care about. So if you've got customers all over the place versus having, let's say you've got 10 customers in a particular narrow category that everybody knows, and they know those people that work there, your ability to get new customers goes way up. So it's this real solid foundation to build your go-to-market on, your whole company on.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It takes discipline. It's, it's like, it's dieting, right? It's not always the easiest, but it, is probably the best for you.
Yeah.
Really hard. But if each one of those offers is mission creep, where they're taking your product in different directions, or they're asking for services or whatever, then before you know it, you're off in a different direction. So I'll give you a good example. Like this comes up a lot with our companies where maybe they're starting off on AWS as their platform. That's what they support. But then they talk to a company that should be a great customer, but they're asking for Azure or GCP as a hard requirement. And these early stage startups need to determine like, okay, should we go multi-cloud? Because they're offering us money right now. Well, that multi-cloud project could be a very, very material engineering deviation, right? It might distract their entire team, to go get this customer, and it might feel like the right thing to do. But like now you're in a major distraction, and the end result product may not be great. Versus saying, how many customers do we believe are on AWS that we could serve? Just AWS by example. Like, are there enough that we could say no to this one other customer for now and say, hey, we're about a year out from that, so you're going to need to wait, and just go with what you can serve today.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like a narrowing that like should really help, most startups, if indeed there are more customers out there that they can go get.
Yeah.
So that's the type of discipline that we're looking for, or we're advocating for, because again, it does really end up helping the team later.
And did you say mission creep? Is that like a phrase that you guys have? It's not one I've heard, but is that like a potential customer that takes you off your mission of like who you're solving for?
Yeah, exactly. So, I'll just give two other hypothetical examples. Let's say your initial target is financial services companies, but then you happen to reach a healthcare company and they're like, yeah, this sounds really great. However, we have this one requirement that's specific to healthcare. Can you build it? The temptation would be to go build it. Now you're in two different market segments, right? You're going fintech and healthcare has slightly different product needs. They might have like, just some functionality that they need for their business, or an integration that they need. And that's fine. But when you're early on, when you're seed stage, you have limited resources, right? You only have a handful of engineers and you have a handful of runway. And once you start building things for more and more people, then, it does get harder, right? It does get harder to stay focused. And And whereas like, if you're like, hey, no, we're not in healthcare today in this example, we're going to stay with fintech because we believe there's enough customers with pain that fit what we've already built.
Mm,
And we just have to say no for now to some of these other things. That's just really hard.
mm.
Like it's hard to do because people are offering you money, right? Like, and like I think in a lot of people's minds, a lot of founders' minds, like, hey, money's money. Like we just got to get to 1 million. But the reality is, all dollars aren't the same. If you can stick with if you can stay in one narrow category, and your odds are a little bit better off.
Yeah.
So, there's a other early stage sales experts that use a phrase that I like to steal, and it's called instead of ICP saying for an ideal customer profile, it's initial customer profile.
Mm.
Where are you starting? Right? You know that there's adjacencies. There's more customers, but if you start at your narrow, then you can win the right to move to those other segments.
Yeah, no, I think there's a huge amount of wisdom in that. I think that the bit that comes through is that I was just with a business last week that they had a really clear initial customer profile through pre-seed seed, crushed it, raised a ton of money in their A round, and all of a sudden they've now got multiple ICPs that they're trying to target. And I guess from your perspective, like how do you guide the founders after that A round? Do you say stay focused, or at what point do you know to maybe cross the chasm and experiment into additional ICPs where, yeah, there's maybe a level of unknown and then a bit of confusion with the positioning or, even the way that you sell. Do you have any like thoughts there?
Totally. The more deliberate you can be, the better. I think what a lot of times happens is that salespeople like me, they gravitate to where the dollars are. And then they take that back to their product engineering team and say, hey, if we could only get this, if we only build this, we could get this customer. And again, it continues to be tempting even in later rounds, the later stages of funding. Now, but if the company's deliberate of like, hey, this is our ICP today, we're going to now test these adjacent ICPs to see, if we can get some momentum. That's a pretty smart way to do it, rather than just kind of let pure randomness determine that, right? Or like, or just an ambitious salesperson that wants to hit their number. And like, don't get me wrong, like I love that pushing by the sales team to be like, hey, like there's money over here, but that needs to be ideally it's an intentional decision of like, okay, now we're going to go towards this and we're going to build what they need. And then marketing aligns around that with case studies. Now you're going to like the events that segment cares about. So it's really about doing it intentionally versus randomly.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has changed is that AI has made it easier to test at scale, to create landing pages, to create content, to make those additional ICPs feel like you actually are perhaps more informed within their category than previously, where maybe you would need a team of 10 or 15 marketers to do that, especially in new markets. And you said at the top of the conversation that recently you've brought in this GTM engineering expertise within the fund or within Unusual, and we're seeing it a ton. We're seeing it a ton across early stage, but also now later stage, whether they're PE owned or they're venture backed. Mm-hmm. What is GTM engineering to you guys?
Yeah, well, there's just a number of ways that if you have product market fit, you should be seeing what we would call warm interest. People are arriving your website, they're consuming your content, they're interacting with your posts on LinkedIn, for example. And so how do you implement strategies to capture that warm? And there's some smart systems that you're able to do that, to these kind of mid-funnel prospects that are willing to engage, and you can do so pretty efficiently without having like a ton of people. And so I think that's like what we're seeing as being like one of the most effective strategies right now, is, coming up with more kind of automated engagement and plays for when those moments happen, when those interactions happen. There's also, of course, like just enrichment of data that can happen that people have been doing for a while, but I think it's just gotten better. So that's just making, anytime someone is, again, on your website, for example, you should be able to understand who they are, what were they looking at. That's a great time to reach out. That's a great time to connect with them. That's a great time to give them another additional piece of content,
Mm.
and automating that as much as possible. You see a lot of really good results from it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, we're seeing some really cool applications of it, and I think it's only going to get more compelling and interesting as to why businesses have to be doing it. I guess for anyone listening that is perhaps trying to navigate these massive shifts with AI, and as you says, with like the GTM engineering, and then you've got the disruption with AI native businesses. Like, what's your advice to founders that are maybe looking over their shoulder about how AI ready or enabled they actually are to go and raise up a seed round or a Series A? Like, is there any kind of general commentary that you guys would be giving day to day?
Well, if it's around AI and go to market, I'm of course just in general, I'm just a big fan of testing things. There really aren't too many magic bullets out there that you just turn something on and all of a sudden it's a game changer.
Mm.
Most AI tools you need to set up, you need to tweak, you need to uh, inform to get the most out of it. But there is some leverage out there for sure to be gained. So yeah, I would just be testing things that make sense for your business model. And I think as you as a company mature, I think there are more and more attractive AI options out there for you. Early stage, I think there's less at the moment. I think early stage, like when you're pre-products, pre-seed seed, it's still pretty manual. Like, at least like that's where I get my best results is like being quite manual. And it's funny, I'm probably less automated than I ever have been in doing go-to-market work because there's certain channels, for example, like outbound email, which just really aren't very productive any longer. I think the trust is gone from that channel, and there's just a flood of AI's slop
Yeah.
there that makes it really hard to perform. I'm not saying it can't. I'm sure there's some people out there that will disagree with me, but being when you're trying to get early stage feedback, when no one knows your brand, no one knows your company, uh, there's just not a lot there. Then you kind of have to be manual in terms of how to reach people. And I get great. I mean, like I have 10% plus response rates on my messaging, but you know, there's not a lot automated about it really. I mean, but it's so measured.
Is it
So,
mainly
but
LinkedIn is the channel for that, or are you?
today it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope, yeah, I mean, I think at some point LinkedIn will I hope it doesn't, but there's a risk that LinkedIn becomes the same as email where people stop paying attention to it because they don't trust it as much. But what I love about LinkedIn today is that people can see your face, they can see your background, right? They can see who you're connected with. And as I was saying with staying narrow, one of the benefits I get when I work with a particular company and I'm super narrow is as I connect with people on LinkedIn, as I'm reaching out to them to get feedback or to introduce them to this company, I then collect people in that very narrow segment that then when I reach out to somebody else, they're like, oh, he knows that person, that person, that person. That increases the likelihood that someone wants to engage with me because I know the same people they do. You
Mm.
can't do that on email,
Mm.
right? It's just a random person. So that context, it doesn't work in all cases, but I think it does increase the likelihood that someone who's maybe on like not ready to engage with some stranger, but sees that you've got some familiarity with people they know, they can look at your background, your picture, but also if you can demonstrate to them that you actually know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's a big thing that AI to me sometimes can't always do is to be on message in a way that's like quite relevant to a particular individual.
Yeah.
I guess people will disagree with me that they can, scrape and do all these things, but I find when you can war one to one, you can do that the best. Just
Yeah.
takes a little more time, but the results for me right now speak for themselves. So
Yeah, it's awesome.
Now later on, like to your earlier question, Stuart, like they're just as you start showing product market fit and growing your company like stage wise, like I think there's just way more options to leverage automation and AI that are important that companies should definitely be considering.
Yeah. So one of the final questions I have is that you've talked a lot about, as the operating partner, getting in and like supporting more often than not the technical founders, doing some of this grunt work and SDR almost, then helping qualify, probably close deals. What's the transition out for the operating partner in your world once the A round is raised? Like, is it a straight kind of handover, or do you have a process where you're upskilling like new VPs of sales? Like, what does that look like? If you can
Yeah,
give a view.
it's a good question. So ideally, I'm finding my replacements. So I might, we certainly recommend a founder-led sales process as long as you can. That's important for a number of reasons, especially for a technical founder. And I'll just touch on that briefly. Like it's important to hear from customers directly, like how they're reacting to your product, how they're finding the implementation onboarding of that product. Like the founder really has to hear that. If they delegate that too soon, then there's a lot of risks, right? And the biggest risk is thinking that like that this product is sellable and someone can't sell it, and so you just go hire somebody different that can sell it. If the founder can't sell it, no one can. So them being a part of that process is really important. But we're doing this together, but then at some point it's time for the founder to delegate, and at that point, then we might be hiring some individual contributors to come in early, and eventually there's a sales leader that will come in. At what number of people or revenue is up for debate, and there's just different opinions about that. But yeah, ideally we're helping bring that next person in. The better momentum that the startup gets, the better the sales leader they can hire. Right? It's not hard to find someone that will take a VP sales title, but the really good ones are going to look at a lot of the things I just talked about, earlier of like, what do the customers look like? What segment are they in? How are they buying? Like, do they all look the same? They want to see the initial semblances of product market fit that they think they can go and make into a big company.
Yeah.
So that's ideally what we're setting up is for, a true A player sales leader that looks at this early stage business is like, okay, like I'm in. And so we help with that. We have a talent person, really good talent person, Unusual, that does hiring across technical roles and go-to-market roles. So we'll help on that as much as we can. There's some really interesting stuff going on. We're in like you mentioned, like data infrastructure, SaaS, kind of our core categories, and within those, like we have some really, really exciting companies that are taking off right now. Like just a very, very strong growth curve. So if anyone out there is excited about these type of companies, definitely go check them out. And most of them are hiring and always looking for great people.
Yeah, love it. Doug, where can people find you on LinkedIn, on the website? Like, yeah, what's the best way to find you for everybody that's listening?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Just search my name. There's I think only one of me. I'm on X. I'm on our website. So yeah, unusual.vc is our website. But yeah, happy to connect with anyone if people need want to chat or need some advice. Happy to do that. And then any early stage founders that are out there, anything you've heard today that sounds like that's you and you could benefit from Unusual support, we'd love to chat with you.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Look, really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for your time. And yeah, we'll share all the links to your profile on the website in the description on the podcast. So yeah, Doug, thanks so much. And thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks, sir.
Take care.